Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me here today. I gotta say, I'm not much of a betting man, but I would bet a lot of money here today and say that each and every one of you have had fast food at some point in your lives. Some of you probably go out for fast food with a bit more frequency, or if you're like me, you kind of grew up on McDonald's chicken nuggets. So, I mean, what's your favorite fast food restaurant? Go ahead and type it in the chat and share with everyone. And as you're starting to think about fast food, I want you to start to think about the employees. You walk into a fast food restaurant, who do you see working there? Probably a lot of young people, but also some older people, people working part-time or full-time, people who work there a short amount of time or who make this their careers. It's likely many of us haven't really put thought into what the workplace does on the individual, what the experience of working in a fast food restaurant is like. So with that, hello, good afternoon. My name is Daniel Hernandez-Zapata. I'm a film and television major in the College of Communications with an emphasis in screenwriting. And my keystone today is Rush, a fast food musical. So to give you a bit of backstory, I actually worked in a fast food restaurant for 6 years. And the way that I often describe it is that it was the best of times, it was the worst of times, to quote Dickens. But something about this place, even with the good and the bad, it really had an impact on my life and on my outlook. So I knew I had to write a story about this place someday. So Rush is a full-length original musical about the lives and experiences of a group of fast food employees on the brink of change. When I came to Boston University as a freshman, I started working on the first draft. But after finishing that draft, I realized that I deviated a lot from the original idea and intention behind the story. So for the Keystone, I basically took that first draft and tossed it away, and I had to come up with a completely new story, write new scenes, new songs. But the biggest challenge of all has remained the same, which is that I've never written music before, never written lyrics before. So this truly is the ultimate writing challenge. So now let's get into the story of what Rush is all about. So Rush takes place in a fictional, very popular fast food restaurant in sort of middle America called Charlie's Chicken Chunks, where the slogan is, everyone comes back for more. The characters, I'll run through them real quick. And on screen, you'll actually see like a quote that each of them makes throughout the show. So for our characters, we have Mark. He's this high school student. He has no idea what he's about to get into when he takes on this job at Charlie's. There, he's going to meet Sam, who's been working here longer than anyone else. He knows the restaurant like the back of his hand, but doesn't want to be here, doesn't really care about this place. There is Mackenzie, who's one of the older employees. She is the ultimate goody two-shoes, just plays everything by the rules and wants to impress her boss. We have Betty. She is a Mark's mother. She's a single mother. She doesn't work at Charlie's. She works at a different restaurant, but she is important to the story. We have Charlie, the man behind Charlie's Chicken Chunks. He's the owner of the restaurant, this very kind of nice guy, at least on the surface. And then we, of course, have our ensemble of other coworkers, most notably of whom is Lizzie, this young girl, very brash, who isn't afraid of getting into a fight with any of the customers. So now I want to run through a quick synopsis of the show so that you get a sense of the dramatic beats in the story. And I'll just read through this real quick. So Rush. It's an exciting day at Charlie's Chicken Chunks as Mackenzie motivates her coworkers to welcome their newest employee, Mark. Sam shows Mark the ropes and pulls back the curtain for Mark to learn about the low wages, the few promotions, and the exigent responsibilities of the workplace. It's a less than ideal job, but as Sam says, nothing changes. The two pals dream for a better tomorrow and make the most of every shift as Mark starts to, quote, learn how to master the rush, which is a heightened sense of self where you're able to drop everything around you and focus purely on what's in front of you. Mackenzie dreams too, and that's to get promoted to manager. She tries to impress her boss, Charlie, on multiple occasions, but Charlie only ever seems to care about Betty, his secret girlfriend and Mark's mother. Everything suddenly changes when Sam gets a job offer at a bank, and the pay is a whopping $15 an hour. Mark, now worried that his friend will leave, plots to get Sam promoted. Charlie does offer Sam a promotion and $15 wage, but Sam demands that all the employees get their overdue raise. This only reveals the most shocking secret of all, which is that Mark actually makes more money than any of them. After all, his mom is dating the boss. So Sam quits on the spot. Mackenzie, oblivious to all of this, is given the promotion instead, And as she celebrates, Mark, in his attempt to make good, quits his job and rallies the others to join him, but alas, no one does. Months later, Mackenzie, now as the manager, struggles to lead her coworkers. Sam is miserable at his job, and Betty and Charlie get engaged. As for Mark, Sam lashes out at him for trying to help and relate despite his privilege, and this enrages Mark, so he goes off to Mackenzie and tells her the truth, which is that she was only ever promoted because Sam quit. Questioning her qualities and worth, Mackenzie sees that even when she won, she didn't. Betty encourages Mark to make amends, and to his surprise, Mark finds Sam working once again at Charlie's. Sam acknowledges that Mark did make a real change because his time at the restaurant led to more conversations and discussions about the greater issues there in the workplace. The fight continues, but it's different between them. They're no longer close friends, and so they can only reminisce on the good old days when Mark used to work there and they mastered the rush. This story is going to be interspersed with interludes. These are short moments, think of them as mini scenes that hope to give an added realistic feel of the workplace on stage. And so they vary from like comedic moments of the employees dealing with difficult customers, or more musical moments where the characters talk about, the long hours ahead. And after having gone through all of that, you can now see on screen what is the full outline of the show, the 2 acts, and all the scenes in between. So now I just want to read a quick excerpt of the show. So to give you a bit of context, the payday interlude happens about halfway through the first act. It's been a rough day at work, but it's payday, so all the checks get handed out, and this musical moment ensues. I'm not going to sing for you, but I hope you'll get an understanding of what the moment will look like, and you can read along on screen. So we start off with Lizzie, who sings, "Payday, then take it all. Someday I'm going to quit this job." Then Mackenzie joins in. "Essentially, I'm essential and a disgrace. Essentially, I'm essentially sick of this place. I can't get stuck on this anyway. I have to focus, or else I won't make the next." And then everyone joins in. "Payday, then lose it all. Someday I'm gonna leave it all." And as the entire company joins in, the music swells, it becomes a bigger moment, and the ensemble is split into sort of these 3 different columns. And so what follows is this moment where everyone is singing. It's very layered. Everyone's kind of in this big whoosh moment. And I'll just read it for you. So, "Payday, someday I'm going to make the jump. I'm checking the check just to check if it's all there. Payday, someday I'm going to get to move on. I'm checking again because I bet something's off here. Payday, someday I'm going to be better off. The check is correct. How upset. Now it's 2 weeks till." And then payday. And then Lizzie, the music softens down and Lizzie sings, "If another customer gets in my way, I'll wage a war for a better wage someday," and everyone, but not. And that's the scene. So moving right along, I want to talk quickly about some of the themes explored in the show. So one idea that gets explored is this idea that everyone comes back for more, which isn't just the slogan of the restaurant, but it's also this kind of throwaway line that the characters make, especially when talking about quitting the job and moving on. This was actually inspired by my own time working in fast food, where I saw that it was really difficult for my coworkers and for myself to quit the job and move on to something else. And so whenever somebody did choose to move on, there was always this saying of like, "Oh, like I'm sure they'll come back." Everyone comes back for more. I'm not sure what it is about the restaurant, but it's easy to fall back to this type of job. You almost feel like you're kind of stuck here sometimes. Another idea explored is this question of change and the difference between making a change and making a real change. This is something that Mark and Sam explore throughout the show, and what they decide on is that making a change is any sort of small, superficial change to help make the workplace more tolerable, whereas making a real change involves actually challenging the system of why these types of workplaces are the way that they are. And these ideas are actually personified in our 2 main characters, because whereas Mackenzie is only interested in getting promoted and continuing to run things smoothly, Mark is a bit more interested in changing the foundations of how these places run. In terms of why the story right now, it's pretty interesting to see how about a year ago, fast food employees were essential workers. They were these kind of heroes braving out into the pandemic to make their living and serve their communities. And then juxtaposing that with a couple of weeks ago when the push for a $15 federal minimum wage was struck down, seen as sort of too radical, despite the fact that many experts agree it would have a lot of benefits on working class communities. I think overall, there's just a lot of change that needs to be done with how people think about and actually act on fast food employees and these working class communities. In terms of where I am right now, I gotta say, writing a musical takes a long time. So I am not quite finished with the draft. That's just something I'm gonna keep working on and wrapping it up. But this experience with the Keystone has been phenomenal, and getting to really dig into my passions for musical theater and try something completely new and having fun with it. And I'm happy to say the project doesn't end here, because once I'm done with this draft, I'm sure there'll be more drafts in the future. We might see this show get workshopped someday, or even better, get to actually see a production of it. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, friends and colleagues, thank you so much. This is Rush.